Liability. Viability is super, super important. That was another attorney who was talking about. We got 5 minutes. Another attorney was talking about what is the liability situation. So if you have a franchise and you're creating it, you want to make sure that there's zero liability for you. You want to make sure that you're requiring anybody else takes a franchise that they have their own insurance. There's an indemnification agreement, which means, listen, at the end of the day, if we get sued, you have to pay us. Because the way that it works is that people can sue whoever they want. So if you have a franchise and you get super successful and there's a bunch of different locations and someone goes to sue one of the locations, they're suing the whole name. So it could potentially bring in everybody. So your indemnification agreement says, listen, if I get brought into this, you franchisee owner, if this is your location that gets in trouble, you're agreeing that you're going to take over this litigation and you're going to litigate it. And if you don't, and I'm forced to do it, you then owe me all of my legal fees and any type of judgment that gets put against me. So you want to make sure that that language is in there. And now if you're going into a company and you're going into a franchise, you want to make sure you understand what that liability is. You want to make sure, are there certain things, like if they're the ones doing advertising, right? So let's say they are the ones advertising and you're buying into a franchise. And then you have liability language that says that you're responsible for all of the liability lawsuits on advertising. Well, that's not, you don't want that. If they're the ones doing the advertising, I shouldn't have to take the liability for any type of advertising that ends up being wrong, like unfair advertising, any kind of misinformation in the advertising, over-promising, any of those kind of things. So it's really important you understand from each of those perspectives, buying into a franchise or the fact that you're creating one, is where is that liability actually lying at? The legal dispute resolutions, this is huge for me. This here is, I'm always like, what does it say? What does it talk about when everything goes wrong, right? I'm telling you from the very beginning, assume everything's going to go wrong. This is going to end up in litigation. Is everything in this contract? But what's going to happen? One of the best things you always want to have is making sure that you have a requirement that there's a mediation first. That's a great thing to require, that you don't just get sued, that there's a notice requirement, that there's a mediation. We're all going to try to work this together. We're going to get a mediator and we're going to try to sit down to see if we can come to an agreement. And if we can't come to an agreement, then you need to make the decision, do you want to require arbitration or litigation? Some of them say, listen, we don't ever want to go to litigation, and we just want to arbitrate. And arbitrate is a quasi version where you can't file a lawsuit. You have to file an arbitration kind of petition with this kind of semi-quasi company where there's like judges that are supposed to be overseeing it. I'm a friend of litigation. I'm a litigation attorney. It's what I specialize in. But arbitration is potentially a lot cheaper, but the law is better in litigation. Arbitration is like monkey court. It is. Depending on who ends up showing up as your arbitrator, crazy thing have happened. When in litigation, they have to follow the law. They have to follow the law. I can argue it. I can file an appeal if it all goes wrong. I'm a jury trial specialist, so I would rather go to a jury trial. But you may decide I don't. I'd rather it always be on an arbitration basis. And where's the governing law at? That is huge. If it all goes wrong, where is the agreement that I have to litigate? I have had people sign agreements in Florida that their arbitration clause is in California, which means they're not paying attention that if it all goes wrong, guess who they have to do? They have to hire an attorney in California, in a city they don't live in. They have to fly to there for all of the hearings, and now they've been at a disadvantage. The last thing I'll make sure you guys know is, sure, most of you guys have heard, but the FTC has now determined that non-competes are not allowed in contracts, but there are specific requirements that allow them. There's certain times that they're allowed, but in general, they are not allowed at all, these non-compete agreements. So if you're doing an agreement, you got to make sure you don't have a non-compete agreement that is in violation of the law. And now you guys know that it's going to change a whole entire landscape, but non-compete agreements are not in place. The one last thing I will say is making sure non-disclosure agreements are huge. If you're going to start pitching your ideas to people, be careful who you're talking to, and making sure you understand what a non-disclosure agreements are, that you have those in places. Because if you sit down with someone, you give somebody your idea and you have no non-disclosure agreement and it's gone. It's very, very difficult to ever get it back. Yes? Federal. This is federal.
Federal Trade Commission just banned non-competes. So
Whole
yeah,
world.
I think it's a good idea. You know, it forces leaders to be better leaders, and it allows people who have better ways of doing things to increase competition. Hey, that last slide, just so y'all know, I am the co-chair of the African American Franchise Council. We are specifically helping African American families and business entrepreneurs get access to funding. Candace will be joining the African American Franchise Council, so
Yes.
if that's somebody you want to have access to,
Yes.
please reach out to Candace Colucci. One
no
moment,
question.
and this is how, please take a picture of this
Yes.
screen. This is how you can get in touch with Candace Colucci. Candace, thank you so much for sharing your
Thank you so
knowledge.
much for having me. And guys, dream big, go for it. You get one life. I'm like, it's great that you guys are here getting the education you need. This is where you start and where you should grow, but just do it.